Lisha Nixar knelt before the obsidian throne, the weight of 1,000 shadowed eyes pressing against her skin like the chill of eternal night. Her voice rang clear through the vaulted halls of the Dominion Citadel, each syllable a blade honed by years of rote perfection. By the blood of the first veil and the stars that guard our realm, I, Lisha Nixar, accept the mantle of heir apparent, sworn to uphold the Nixar Dominion sovereignty against all shadows encroaching. The High Council murmured approval, their pallid faces etched with ritual scars that glowed faintly under the bioluminescent veins pulsing in the walls. Lisha rose, her crimson gown whispering against the stone floor, and extended her hand for the crown of thorns, a jagged circlet forged from meteorite iron, symbol of the thorns that had pierced the first sovereign's flesh during the Great Awakening. Archivist Elara placed it upon her brow, the thorns drawing pinpricks of blood that Lisha savored, metallic and invigorating. Her court duties crystallized in that moment: adjudicate border disputes with the Krell hives, oversee the Veil harvest tithes from the outer moons, and recite flawlessly the clauses of the eternal accord that bound their nocturnal empire to a fragile galactic peace. Clause 17. Subclause 4. Lisha intoned as the council rose, testing her fluency before the assembled nobles. The Nixar Dominion cedes no claim to the Ebon Nebula trade lanes in exchange for mutual non-aggression pacts with the United Spheres. Nods rippled through the chamber. She had memorized the treaty's labyrinthine prose since her 10th cycle, her mind a vault for protocols that lesser heirs fumbled. Minister Varen, his frame gaunt and eyes like polished onyx, stepped forward from the council dais, his voice a silken rasp. Your fluency honors us, Heir Lisha, yet the accord frays at its edges. Border skirmishes with the Krell escalate, 3 outposts raised this cycle alone. To avert full war, the council proposes a binding alliance, an arranged marriage to a human envoy from the United Spheres. Their technical advisor, Elias Kade, arrives within the hour. This union cements our treaty, flooding our forges with their fusion alloys while staving off invasion. Whispers erupted like bats from eaves. Humans, pale, sun-scarred weaklings from a daylight world, their blood thin and their endurance laughable. Lisha's fangs itched at the indignity, but she straightened, her voice steel. I accept the necessity, Minister, but I will preside over this marriage on my own terms. No diluted rights, no concessions to their fragile customs. The Dominion bends for no one. The chamber doors groaned open, admitting a delegation bathed in the harsh glare of portable lumen globes. Humans, their skin flushed from the Citadel's dim, eternal twilight. At their fore strode Elias Kade, taller than the others, his frame leaned but unyielding, dressed in a simple gray tunic embroidered with sphere sigils, no ornate armor, no hovering drones. Just a data slate in one hand, and eyes that scanned the hall with quiet precision. He bowed, not deeply but correctly, per protocol Lisha had just recited. I am Elias Kade, technical advisor to the United Spheres Embassy, he said, his voice steady, translated flawlessly by the chamber's lingual field. My nation accepts this marriage as a pillar of our shared mission, peace through partnership. I pledge my service to the Nixar Dominion and its heir. Lisha studied him, nostrils flaring at the faint, warm scent of his blood, richer than she'd expected, pulsing with a rhythm that didn't falter under scrutiny. He met her gaze without flinching, a human trait she'd read about in xenobiology tomes. Their relentless stare born of worlds without true night. The council applauded politely, but Varen's lips thinned. As the investiture dissolved into formal recess, petitions flooded Lisha's calm crystal. Dozens from traditionalist houses, Varen's faction at the vanguard. A human consort dilutes our bloodline, one read. Holographic script flickering. The veil will weep. Public demonstrations brewed in the underlevels, chants echoing up from the hive markets. Nixar pure, humans endure. Lisha swept into her private solar, fangs bared in irritation. Household, she snapped to her attendants. 3 lithe Nixar aides with silver-threaded manes. Manage the wedding logistics personally, no delegation to underlings. Secure the altar crystals from the Veilspire vaults, calibrate the Blood Oath chalice for dual physiologies, and map the procession routes to avoid demonstration choke points. I will not have my authority questioned on the first cycle. The aides bowed, eyes wide at her micromanagement. Princesses delegated, heirs observed, but Lisha felt the court's eyes testing her. One slip, and Varen's whispers would unseat her before the thorns settled. 2 cycles later, the pre-wedding protocol rehearsal convened in the mirror hall. its walls a maze of polished obsidian reflecting infinite versions of the participants. Lissa stood at the altar's heart, flanked by Elias and a cadre of honor guards clutching ceremonial sabers, curved blades etched with awakening runes, symbols of the first sovereign's victory over the Sun Scourge. "Procession halt," Lissa commanded, voice echoing. "Guard Lyra, your grip on the saber is lax. Present it thus." She mimed the angle, precise to the millimeter per Canon 17. Lyra, young and flustered, adjusted, but her claw slipped on the sweat-slick hilt. The saber whipped free, arcing toward Laisha's throat in a blur of rune light. Gasps froze the hall. Elias moved, a single fluid step, his hand snapping out like a striking viper. Fingers closed around the blade mid-swing, inches from Lisha's neck, halting it without a tremor. The guard's momentum yanked her forward, but Elias pivoted, absorbing the force with a subtle shift of hips and shoulders, guiding the saber harmlessly to the floor. He released it with a soft clink, straightening as if reclaiming a dropped stylus. Silence shattered into murmurs. Lyra stammered apologies, but Lisha's pulse thrummed. Her eyes locked on Elias. No Nixar could snatch steel bare-handed without severed tendons, their claws shredded flesh on contact, finesse sacrificed for raw power. Yet this human's palm showed no blood, no wince, only faint calluses, like a forge hand's. "Impressive," Lisha said, stepping closer, her voice low amid the resuming drill. "Your methods intrigue me, Advisor Cade. A private briefing. Now, explain how a technical advisor wields a blade like a shadow assassin." Elias inclined his head, expression neutral, but his eyes held a flicker. Restraint, perhaps, or calculation, a reflex from my world's training regimen's highness. Nothing more. But if it pleases you, I'll demonstrate. Varen watched from the hall's edge, his fingers steepled, while aides whispered of petitions swelling into outright blockades. Laisha ignored them, gesturing Elias toward a side chamber. The crown weighed heavier now, thorns pricking deeper, as alliance and anomaly intertwined. In the shadowed alcove, away from prying glyphs, Laisha circled him, fangs half-bared in assessment. That was no rote block. Your balance, impossible for your physiology. Nixar recover from such strains in hours, humans fatigue in minutes, per the xenotomes. Elias met her gaze steadily, hands open. "We adapt, Highness. My people train for endurance. Long patrols, multi-threat scenarios. It's practical, not exceptional." He flexed his hand, unmarked. Skin toughened over cycles, nerves recalibrated. "But your guard's power is formidable. I'd not match a full strike." She probed further, intrigued despite herself. "Demonstrate the pivot, on me." He hesitated, then nodded, guiding her through the motion, his touch firm, instructional, lacking the deference of underlings. Laisha mirrored it flawlessly on the first try, her body language shifting as alien efficiency clicked with Nixar grace. For the first time, protocol felt alive, not a cage. Outside, Varen's hologram flickered to life on her wrist comb. "Erlisha, the traditionalists rally. Petitions demand you renounce this farce before the underlevels ignite." Lisha silenced it, turning back to Elias. "They test me. And you are no mere envoy. What else do you hide?" His smile was faint, humble. "Only service to the Alliance, Highness. Shall we refine the rehearsal?" As they returned to the hall, Laisha felt the first crack in her sheltered world, a human's quiet competence, threading through her throne's thorns like unexpected light. The demonstrations grew louder below, but so did her resolve. This marriage would be hers to wield. Laisha's voice rang clear through the shadowed grand hall, the ancient vows spilling from her lips like blood from a fresh vein. "By the eternal night, I bind this alliance, my throne to your worlds, unyielding as shadow to light." Heavy guards flanked the raised dais, their crimson cloaks stiff with ceremonial armor, pikes glinting under the bioluminescent chandeliers that mimicked starlight. Elias stood opposite her, his human frame straight in the tailored black diplomatic robes, eyes steady on hers, no trace of the unease she'd glimpsed earlier amid the returning procession's echoes. The crowd of nobles murmured approval, their pale faces upturned, fangs subtly bared in ritual smiles. Laisha felt the weight of it all settle, the treaty sealed, her legitimacy etched in public stone. She extended her hand for the ritual clasp, Elias mirroring the motion with precise calm. A glint flashed from the upper balconies. Laisha's gaze snapped up as a knife hurtled through the air, straight for her throat, its edge whistling with lethal intent. Time fractured. Elias exploded into motion, his body a blur that shouldn't have been possible for a mere advisor. He lunged across the dais, intercepting the blade mid-flight with his bare palm, catching it by the flat, blood blooming instantly between his fingers, then pivoted, hurling himself at the shadowed assailant who'd risen from the crowd. The attacker, a cloaked lesser noble with wild eyes, drew a second dagger, but Elias was already on him. A brutal twist of the wrist disarmed the man, followed by a knee to the gut that folded him double, then an elbow strike to the temple that dropped him limp to the marble floor. Guards swarmed in, pikes lowered, but Elias stepped back, hands raised, the captured knife dangling loosely from his grip. Blood dripped steadily from his palm, staining the white vow scroll at his feet. Leisha's heart thundered, her fangs aching with the surge of adrenaline she'd only read about in strategic tomes. No diplomat moved like that. No fragile human off-worlder. The hall erupted. Shouts ricocheted off vaulted ceilings, nobles surging to their feet. Assassin. Treachery. A cluster of traditionalists near the front. Varen's faction, their sigils prominent, pointed accusing fingers not at the fallen attacker, but at Elias. The human. He planted the blade himself. Spy. Foreign poison in our blood. Minister Varen rose from his council seat, his gaunt face twisted in calculated outrage, voice booming with amplified authority. This consort reveals his true colors. No advisor wields combat like a shadow operative. I move for immediate council investigation. Expel the human and his ilk before they unravel the Dominion. Leisha's guards formed a wall around her and Elias, but the chants swelled. Expel! Investigate! Her mind raced, protocol clashing with the raw violence she'd just witnessed. Elias met her eyes briefly, his expression unreadable, blood still trickling. She raised a hand, silencing the din with the sheer force of her heir's command. The attacker lies bound. The human protected the heir. Council will convene at dawn for inquiry, but none act without my word. Secure the hall. As guards dragged the assailant away, Leisha retreated to her private antechamber, off the dais, pulse still hammering. The door sealed with a hiss, and she whirled on the lone figure she'd ordered to follow, Elias, his wounded hand now wrapped in a hasty cloth from his robe's hem. Up close, the hall's shadows etched the lines of strain on his face, but his posture remained steady. No flinch of pain. Explain, she demanded, voice low and edged like a fang. That was no courtly reflex. You caught a poisoned blade, midair, and subdued a trained infiltrator in seconds. Diplomats debate treaties. They do not fight like elite killers. Who are you, truly? Elias inclined his head, respectful but unyielding, his warm brown eyes locking onto hers without evasion. Princess Leisha, my role is exactly as stated, technical advisor to the treaty mission. Humans train broadly for duty. Protocol includes basic defense, especially for high-value assignments. He reached into his robe's inner pocket, withdrawing a slim data slate that flickered to life with a holographic map. Palace layouts unfolded in glowing blue, patrol routes marked in red, vulnerability nodes pulsing yellow, response timelines etched in precise grids. This is my preparation. Your security is exemplary, but gaps exist. Blind angles in the upper galleries. Delayed reinforcements from the East Wing. I briefed my small team to cover them discreetly. The knife came from Grid 7B. My intercept was intentional protection, nothing more. Lissa leaned in, scanning the map. It was meticulous, overlaying Nixar patrol patterns with alien efficiency she'd never seen from off-worlders, predicting Dard fatigue cycles, even factoring in the dimming chandelier's light shifts. Her strategic theory classes had covered such analyses, but this was practical mastery, born of real shadows. You mapped my palace without clearance, embedded a team. And that technique, human basic defense, disarms a Dominion blade master? He nodded once, flexing his bandaged hand without wince. Humans adapt. We endure longer shifts, spot patterns others miss. It's why Earth sends us. To bridge, not conquer. My duty is your safety, per the treaty's fine print. Unseen until needed. She studied him, the sheltered bubble of her world cracking further. Arrogance had whispered he'd be a ceremonial weakling, a human trinket to parade. But this competence, it unnerved and intrigued, threading light through her throne's isolation. Varen's motion loomed, Xenophobes circling like bats to carrion. She couldn't afford doubt now. Publicly, you'll remain the advisor who heroically intervened, a treaty success story. Her voice hardened with decision. But I'll integrate your team under palace security. My oversight. Prove this protection in drills. Fail, and Varen gets his investigation. Elias's eyes warmed fractionally, a subtle nod of respect. As you command, Princess. We'll integrate seamlessly. Lissa dismissed him with a gesture, watching the door seal behind. Alone, she activated her private comm, summoning Captain Thorne of her guard. Pull Elias Cade's team into rotation. Full access, but report directly to me. Test them hard. And double patrols on Varen's allies. Thorne's voice crackled affirmatively, no questions. Laisha sank into her throne chair, the map's afterimage burning in her mind. The attack was no lone fanatic. Varen's hand lingered in the shadows. But Elias's readiness, it shifted the board. Her marriage, once a protocol chain, now gleamed with potential weapon's edge. Below, the hall's murmurs faded, but her resolve sharpened. She'd wield this human's hidden steel, or break it trying. As dawn's false lights crept through shielded viewports, Lisha felt the first true stir of partnership's thrill, fragile as fresh blood. The demonstrations outside had quieted, but greater storms brewed within. She'd faced them not as sheltered heir, but as ruler forging her path. Lisha's fangs grazed her lower lip as she strode into the shadowed armory, the weight of her decision pressing like a blade at her throat. Elias Kade, she said, voice steady despite the council whispers still echoing in her mind. I require formal lessons, personal defense, basic tactics. Begin at once. Elias turned from the rack of ceremonial blades, his human frame unyielding in the dim phosphor glow, eyes calm as polished obsidian. He wiped sweat from his brow, remnant of solitary drills she'd glimpsed earlier, and inclined his head. For ceremonial duties, Highness, the protocols demand heirs master guard formations, precisely. She stepped closer, her crimson cloak whispering against obsidian floors, ignoring the flicker of amusement in his gaze. No time for games. The supply raids last eve had tested her patience, Varen's faction probing like shadows at dawn. Make it practical. I falter in close quarters. He nodded once, retrieving a pair of weighted batons, human design, balanced for endurance over flash. As you command. We'll rotate through strikes, parries, and evasion. Your form shows theory. Now we build instinct. They moved to the training pit, a sunken circle ringed by force fields that hummed faintly, muffling cries. Lisha shed her outer robes, revealing fitted leathers etched with Nixar sigils, her pale skin gleaming under the low lights. Elias mirrored her, stripping to a simple tunic that clung to corded muscles earned in worlds she'd never touched. He demonstrated first, a fluid pivot strike, baton whistling air, then a counter that flowed into grapple release. Watch the hips, he said. Power starts there, not the arms. She mimicked baton slicing true but recovery lagging, her sheltered frame unaccustomed to the sustained pivot, wet. Sweat beaded on her brow, unpalatable but ignored. Elias corrected with a touch to her elbow, light as instruction, sending an unwelcome spark through her veins. Again. Breathe through it. Hours blurred in rotation. Strike, parry, evade. Lisha's limbs burned, a novel ache for one raised on nutrient drips and sedentary strategy. Elias never flagged, his breaths even, eyes tracking her every micro-adjustment, while calling patterns aloud. Multitasking, she realized dimly. Coaching, adapting, anticipating her fatigue without a word of strain. Then the alarms shrieked. Red strobes bathed the pit as the palace net crackled. Raid on outer supply line, coordinated breach. 3 vectors plasma cutters confirmed. Lisha froze, baton mid-swing. Elias didn't. In one motion, he deactivated the fields, snatched a comm slate from the wall, and barked into it. Perimeter teams, triangulate signatures. Flank left vector, suppress fire on center. Highness, with me. Auxiliary command node, now. She followed, heart pounding not from exertion but the seamless shift. They sprinted through service corridors, Elias already patching feeds. Hollow projections flickered mid-stride, showing skimmers breaching cargo vaults, raiders in void black armor swarming like vermin. Not random, he muttered, fingers flying across the slate, timed to our rotation. Faction markers on the cutters, Varen's supply ghosts. In the node, a cramped blister overlooking the outer docks. Elias orchestrated. Team Alpha, feint east. Draw them into kill box. Bravo, recycle those drones for Overwatch. His voice cut through panicked chatter, calm directives layering like a web. Leisha watched, transfixed, as raiders faltered, pinned by improvised drone swarms he'd repurposed on the fly, cut off by Alpha's bait. He juggled feeds, predicted a fourth vector from debris patterns, and dispatched reserves before confirmation pinged. One raider broke through, plasma rifle spitting toward a fuel depot. Elias vaulted a console, shouldered a guard's carbine, and fired twice, center mass, headshot, before the body hit plasteel. No flourish, just execution. The depot held. Silence fell as the last skimmer crumpled. Leisha's guards stared at him, fangs bared in shock, whispers rippling. Diplomat? That was Operative Weave. Elias handed back the slate, expression neutral. Crisis protocol, Highness. Cleared in 12 minutes. Before she could respond, the council summons blared. Minister Varen's seal, urgent. The chamber loomed vast, crystal spires channeling false moonlight. Counselors arrayed in tiered thrones. Varen rose at the dais, his gaunt frame draped in traditionalist robes, eyes like chipped ice. Highness, the human consort's actions demand review. He commandeered units, wielded lethal force. Beyond diplomatic writ. I file for detainment pending inquiry. The treaty permits advisors, not warriors meddling in Dominion blood. Murmurs swelled, faction heads nodding, protocol their shield. Leisha felt the weight, her earlier thrill curdling to resolve. She ascended the dais, cloak flaring. Denied, Minister. Elias Kade acted under my implied authority, preserving assets your oversight failed to secure. 12 minutes to neutralize. A record even your vaunted guards envy. Varen's lip curled. Implied, he exposed tradecraft unfit for court. What hides beneath that diplomat facade? Competence, she snapped, meeting his gaze. The kind that saved our lines while you filed glyphs. The treaty endures. So does he. Dismissed. Counselors shifted, some exchanging glances, doubt cracking. Varen bowed stiffly, retreating, but Leisha caught his parting glare, a promise of deeper probes. Back in the armory that night, palace shadows thickening, Elias reset the pit. You held the floor well. Now the drill you failed before, double feint into grapple reversal. Leisha gripped the batons, muscles protesting but sharper now. She lunged, feint high, drop low, pivot. Her hips led true this time, baton hooking his guard, reversal flowing into a lock that pinned his arm. She held it a beat longer than needed, their breaths mingling, his warmth a stark contrast to her cool skin. Improved, he said, voice low, tapping yield. Pride flickered in her chest. Genuine, earned. Not yet ruler ready, she admitted, releasing him, but closer. Elias paused, then pulled an encrypted fob from his tunic, tiny, matte black. Fragments from the raiders. Basic recon tradecraft. They ghosted faction nets, but patterns match Varen's donors. He decrypted a burst, chatter logs, supply manifests laced with code. Leisha's eyes narrowed, connecting threads. Donors she'd dismissed as loyalists. Sweep the networks. Full intelligence audit, my seal. He nodded. I'll advise parameters. As techs mobilized under her order, Leisha watched him brief them, patient, precise, adapting jargon to their rhythms. Dawn's threat loomed, but night was hers now. Loyalties teetered. She made her choice. Elias, take third guard provisional command. Covert patrols, outer rims, low profile. Optics be damned. Pragmatism rules. His eyes met hers, a spark of mutual regard. Understood, Highness. We rotate at dusk. The pit echoed empty, but partnership solidified, fragile no more. Storms brewed, but she'd face them armed. Not just in blade, but in alliance. Leisha stood at the remembrance altar, the eternal flames flickering against obsidian pillars as the gathered nobles intoned the litany of shadows. Her fangs ached faintly from the ceremonial fast, but she held her posture regal, eyes scanning the throng below the dais. The air hummed with incense and murmured chants, until a sharp crack split the rhythm, like stone shattering under fang. Shouts erupted. From the shadowed colonnade, armored figures burst forth, cloaked in the deep crimson of House Varak, rival suitors who'd chafed under her ascension. Crossbows twanged, bolts whistling toward the altar. Lisha's guards lunged, but the ambushers were too many, too coordinated, 20 at least, fanning out to cut off escapes. "Protect the air!" her captain bellowed, shield raised as a bolt glanced off it. Lisha drew her ceremonial blade, heart pounding, but before she could signal a retreat, Elias was there, the human diplomat, her supposed advisor, had been at her flank, unassuming in his treaty robes. Now he moved like liquid shadow, shoving her down behind the altar with one hand while barking into a concealed comm in his palm. Flank left, suppress the high ground, improvise charges, shatter the pillars. What? Lisha peered over the edge. Elias had already palmed a pouch from his belt, ripping it open to spill granular powder. Human tech, she realized, alchemical accelerant. He hurled handfuls at the base of a colonnade pillar, then snapped his fingers against a striker from his cuff. Flames whooshed up, the powder igniting in a controlled roar that crumbled stone. The pillar toppled, crashing into 3 ambushers and blocking their advance. Nobles screamed, scattering as Elias orchestrated chaos into order. "You 3 form a wedge on me!" Guards, eyes on the balconies. His voice cut through the din, calm steel amid panic. He multitasked effortlessly, directing her elite guards while scanning the crowd, spotting a sniper on a balcony and flinging a weighted cord from his sleeve to yank the assailant down. The human's eyes flicked between threats, bolts incoming, reinforcements climbing the outer walls, juggling it all without a flinch. Lisha's captain hesitated a beat, then obeyed, his squad pivoting under Elias's lead. They pushed forward as one, Elias at the point, using the fallen pillar's rubble for cover. He kicked over an incense brazier, the hot coals mixing with spilled powder to birth a secondary blast that smoked out 2 more Varak thugs. It was improvised genius, turning ceremony into weaponry, his hands a blur of precise throws and gestures. The ambush crumbled in minutes. Varak survivors fled into the gardens, pursued by palace enforcers. Elias straightened, wiping soot from his face, breath steady despite the frenzy. Lisha rose, staring at him. The court saw it too, whispers rippling like wind through fangs. The diplomat's mask had shattered. By dusk, the palace committee convened in the Hall of Edicts, their hologrids flickering with accusations. Minister Varen loomed at the head, his traditionalist robes stiff as his glare. This human wielded unauthorized demolitions in sacred precincts. Arrest warrant issued. Elias Kadeh, for endangerment of the nobility. Lisha's blood surged. She stepped forward, her voice echoing off vaulted ceilings. "I invoke emergency prerogatives under Clause 47 of the Dominion Code." The warrant dissolves. Continuity of the throne demands it. Varen's eyes narrowed, scales along his neck flaring in irritation. "Highness, protocol! Protocol bent to survival," she snapped, slamming her signet onto the grid. The hologram winked out. The warrant erased. Gasps rippled through the committee. Lisha met their stares, chin high. Elias stood silent at her side, expression neutral, but she felt the weight of his gaze. Grateful, restrained, partnership, tested and proven. That night, in her private scriptorium, Lisha ordered the internal investigation, full access, no redactions. Her aides paled but complied, stacking encrypted files across the obsidian table. She pored over them herself, fingers dancing through hollows cross-referencing service logs from human enclaves. There, buried in treaty addendums, Commander Elias Cade, elite operative of the Terran Vale unit, covert insertions, high-risk extractions, dozens of ops, from pirate blockades to shadow wars. Volunteer for Nixar Embed. Mission, safeguard the air amid rising faction threats. Her pulse quickened. Not a mere advisor, a warrior, bound by duty to her. Dawn light filtered through blood crystal windows as she summoned him to the sealed chamber. Elias entered, shedding his outer robe to reveal tactical harness beneath. No denial in his stance, just quiet readiness. "You hid this," Lisha said, projecting the files. "Commander Cade." He nodded once, eyes steady. "Fragments only, Highness. Veil protocols limit disclosure." "But yes," I volunteered. Human contingent assessed the treaty's fragility. Factions like Varrock's, they smelled weakness. My unit embedded me to ensure you endured. "Why me?" She leaned forward, fangs bared slightly. "Not the treaty. Me. Your line holds the Dominion together. Without you, no stability." His voice softened, a human warmth creeping in. "And after sparring with you, I saw potential worth protecting." She searched his face. Pragmatic, yes, but laced with something deeper. Respect, alliance. Her own chest tightened, the sheltered air glimpsing partnership's edge. Fueled by the files, Lisha stormed the royal conclave at midday. Her parents flanked the throne. Advisors arrayed below, Varen prominent among them. She hurled the holopad onto the dais, files blooming in accusing light. Varen's Verac allies staged the ambush. Intelligence confirms it. Supply logs. Comm intercepts. You knew of factional scheming and let it fester to test me. Her father's brow ridges furrowed. Daughter, no. Lisha's voice cracked like the pillar Elias had felled. Accountability now. Varen, your maneuvers undermine the throne. Step down from committee lead, or face tribunal. Varen hissed, but her mother's gaze sharpened. Appraising. Evidence holds. Yield, minister. He bowed stiffly, retreating. Lisha exhaled, the room's tension easing into murmurs of approval. Her parents exchanged glances. Pride flickered there, tentative. By evening, in the warriors' hall, Lisha issued the decree. Warriors assembled, her palace guard still buzzing from the ambush. Elias stood at her right, no longer masked. Joint training formalizes today. Commander Cade leads. His methods integrate with ours, adapt, or fall behind. Murmurs rose, but her captain nodded first, as the air commands. Elias stepped up, addressing them without bombast. We start with formations. Humans multitask under fire. Watch. He demonstrated, weaving guards into a fluid wedge, calling adjustments mid-drill. They stumbled at first, vampiric pride bristling, but adapted, fangs glinting in exertion. Elias endured longer shifts, correcting without fatigue, his patterns unlocking their rote drills into something alive. Lisha watched from the sidelines, a warrior approaching. One guard paused, scales flushing. How? You see the angles we miss? Practice, Elias said simply, clapping the guard's shoulder. Laughter followed, a shared jest about Varac's crumbling pride. As sessions stretched into night, Lisha joined a bout. Elias parried her strike, grinning faintly. You're leading them already. Not without you, she murmured, blade locking his. Their eyes met. Spark beyond duty. The court watched, suspicion eroding like ash in wind. Storms still brewed, but now she faced them not alone, his strength woven into hers. The Dominion glimpsed it, the human beneath the mask, and the air rising to match. Dawn shattered the sky like fractured obsidian, crimson light bleeding over the palace spires. Lisha's eyes snapped open to the blare of war horns, deep, resonant throbs that vibrated through her bones. Raiders, here! Shouts erupted from the halls beyond her chambers, metal clashing and the acrid tang of plasma fire stung the air. She vaulted from her silk-draped bed, fangs bared instinctively, her night silk gown ripping as she snatched her ceremonial blade from its wall mount. Months of Elias's relentless drills had burned away the rust of courtly idleness. Her body moved with predatory grace now, not the stiff poise of protocol. Guards, she snarled into her calm crystal, voice steady despite the thunder in her chest. Seal the inner gates, mobilize the night blades to the battlements. The crystal flared with frantic responses. Minister Varen's faction had struck first, their loyalists turning cloaks within the walls, coordinating with border raiders breaching the outer perimeter. A coup, timed for dawn when vampire senses dulled under the rising sun. Lisha's mind raced through the palace schematics Elias had forced her to memorize, weak points at the eastern gate, the service tunnels beneath the keep. No time for panic. She was air. She would hold. Bursting into the grand corridor, she collided with Elias, already armored in his unassuming diplomat's vest. Reinforced weave beneath, she knew, hiding tools no courtier would suspect. His human eyes, sharp and unblinking in the harsh light, locked on hers. No words. He pressed a plasma pistol into her hand, grip familiar from their shadowed training sessions. Gates first, he said, voice low, calm as a still pond. I'll lead the assault, you rally the defenses. She nodded, pulse sinking with his resolve. He vanished down a side passage, barking orders to the human advisors who'd infiltrated her guard months ago, undercover operatives, their true nature hidden until now. Lisha sprinted for the command dais overlooking the courtyard, her night blades falling in behind her like shadows coalescing. From the dais, the chaos unfolded. Varen's turncoats, clad in stolen palace crimson, clashed with loyalists at the main gates. while raider skiffs hummed low over the walls, disgorging hulking figures in ragged cloaks, their energy lances carving through stone. Explosions rocked the foundations, a gate tower crumpled in a spray of debris. Lisha's fangs ached with rage. Varen himself stood atop a raider platform, his silhouette unmistakable, gesturing like a puppeteer. "Flank the courtyard," she commanded, her voice amplified by the dais crystal, carrying to every defender. "Nightblades to the high walls, pin them down. Reserves. Hold the keep approaches." Her troops moved with disciplined fury, crossbows loosing bolts that pierced raider shields, but the enemy pressed, numbers swelling. Then Elias struck. From the service tunnels he emerged at the head of a wedge of humans and loyal vampires. 20 strong, improvised shields raised against lancefire. Elias multitasked flawlessly, directing fire with one hand, his pistol barking precise shots that dropped 3 raiders mid-charge, while barking tactics in clipped bursts. "Suppress the left flank. Humans, cover the vamps' reloads." A human beside him juggled a grenade launcher and a med patch, staunching a vampire guard's wound without breaking stride. They held the gates, Elias weaving through the melee like a specter, his blade, a human vibroknife, parrying lances that would crumple vampire steel. Lisha watched, heart pounding, as he adapted on the fly. Spotting a raider sniper nest, he hurled a scavenged shield like a discus, toppling it while calling patterns her people missed. The humans endured, sweat slicked under the sun that barely phased them, pushing longer than any Nightblade could without faltering. Varen's forces wavered, but the gates buckled. "He's holding," she thought, pride flaring hot. But not alone. Nightblades, flanking maneuver, now. Drawing on Elias's lessons, the feints, the terrain reads, she led the charge herself, skirting the courtyard's edge through shadowed alcoves. Under his guidance via comm, they swung wide, plasma pistol hot in her grip. Her team multitasked, scouts jamming raider comms mid-stride, archers providing cover fire while closing. They hit the raider's rear like fangs in the dark. Lisha's blade sang through a turncoat's guard, felling him. Beside her, a Nightblade marveled aloud, "Air. Your timing. It's as if you see the flows." She secured the central keep's approach, her maneuver pinching the enemy between her force and Elias's gatehold. Raiders broke, Varen's platform exploding under concentrated fire. The tide turned in minutes, bodies strewn, survivors yielding. As smoke cleared, Lisha stood atop the keep steps, Elias at her side, both bloodied but unbroken. The court assembled in the courtyard below, nobles, guards, even Varen in chains dragged forward. Whispers rippled, humans among the defenders, their faces revealed, no longer mere advisors. Lisha raised her blade, silencing them. "These humans, my shadows, my saviors, fought as Nixar blood. I pardon their deception. It was mine to command. They are recognized as honored auxiliaries of the Dominion." Gasps echoed, xenophobes paling, but none dared protest with the evidence of victory steaming around them. Her gaze found Elias. "And you, Elias Cade, no longer advisor. I name you Royal Defender, consort in battle and bond. Stand with me." He inclined his head, humble as ever, but his eyes held that spark. The crowd murmured approval, suspicion fracturing under the weight of survival. In the council chamber that afternoon, shadows long again, Lisha faced the assembled ministers. Varen glowered from his seat, humbled but unbroken. "The old ways falter," she declared, unrolling a crystal-etched charter. "This new succession values proven competence over blood alone. No more sheltered heirs. We train, we test, we earn." Eyes widened, traditionalists shifting uncomfortably, but she pressed on. "Elias Kade is my consort, partner in governance. This council stabilizes us. Together, we rebuild." Varen's faction grumbled, but the raid's scars silenced outright rebellion. Competence had spoken. Before the full assembly in the grand hall, lit by hovering glow orbs, Lisha turned to Elias. The court held breath. Protocol be damned. She stepped close, her cool hand finding his warm one, pulling him in. Their lips met in their first public kiss. Tentative, then fierce, a seal of equals. Cheers erupted, tentative at first, then roaring by fang and fire. She vowed against his mouth, voice carrying, "We oath partnership. Nixar endures through us." He echoed it softly, for her alone. "Through us." They led from there, Riding out to fractured provinces, Leisha negotiating truces with raider remnants, Elias forging supply chains. Vampires marveled at his endurance, overseeing rebuilds through double nights, multitasking logistics while reading subtle tensions her people overlooked. Humans, they do not tire as we, a Nightblade captain confided to Leisha one eve, eyes wide with newfound respect, and he sees patterns, like stars aligning in storm. With the coup crushed, factions bending knee, Leisha assumed regency. Her father's throne loomed, but she claimed the duties now. Joint agendas, scribed with Elias. Rebuild walls with vampire stonecraft. Human adaptability. Integrate human tactics into Nightblade drills. Provinces healed under their paired rule. Leisha's strategic vision wed to his pragmatic grit. She glanced at him across a strategy holomap, his fingers tracing supply routes while he listened to a vampire engineer's qualms. Born to rule, she thought, and he taught me to lead. Storms passed, their strength woven eternal. The Dominion rose, united not by blood alone, but by the extraordinary ordinary at its heart.